thanks a lot for Sally preparing the presentation for us. Just a little bit of introduction, what we are doing, what our goals are. So,
yep, so I work for Transport Canberra. We are soon to become major projects Canberra in terms of the delivery of rail. So there's a slight change there, more of a delivery focus. The operations part of my for the government stays within Transport Canberra, but the delivery function in terms of the project works. We're going to a new department. I'm the project director for stage 2 of light rail, and Transport Canberra obviously in a PPP arrangement, so partnership arrangement with Canberra Metro to build and to operate stage 1.
Right. And to get this contractual relationship right, Canberra Metro is a consortium of PPP, public-private partnership. So it means it's a joint venture between territory, public and private entities investing into infrastructure. And I'm representing Canberra Metro Operations, CMET as we call it, since we went into launch, Canberra Metro, which is the operator, and under the interface deal with Project Co, we're working for a 20 years concession to operate and maintain stage 1 and hopefully stage 2 as well.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're trying to move on a bit and see what we can talk about. So we have structured a little bit to introduce you to rail opportunities in Australia, light rail in Canberra in particular, and a few more of opportunities like sustainability, what is in stage 1 implemented already, what are potentially improvements and further installations for stage 2, how to use certain equipment for stage 1 versus also stage 2, what is all around the ticketing and tariff system. It's quite interesting to know about that, and of course to leave some room for you to ask some questions.
I think we were asked to talk about innovation, Tilo, so
Yes.
we've kind of tried not to stay too much in the engineering operations focus, but to talk about some of the changes I think that we're seeing.
Well.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, so that's okay.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So just to start with a bit of an overview, in Australia we have quite a lot of opportunities already existing in Australia in light rail. So I'm not going to read out every individual one for you, but to just point into Melbourne is one of the largest light rail networks in the world, and as German, I have to claim Germany actually has a bigger network in Australia, but it's always which city it is and how you count the kilometers of the network, etc., etc. So leave it as it is. It's one of the largest and one of the historically well-grown and properly very well developed and integrated network. There's a smaller one in Adelaide, as you have certainly heard about Newcastle as a newly introduced system with a very fancy technology, no orbit catenary, so you don't have a wire. But of course, it's still a light rail system, electrically powered. Canberra, of course, stage 1 open and running. We come to that a little bit later. In stage 2, right ahead of us.
Yep.
Gold Coast currently pursuing stage 3. So first 2 stages already being built. Stage 3 in preparation. And as we all know, Sydney CBD East due to come operational by the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. And Parramatta in process.
Parramatta in tendering process, and I'm not sure it's been awarded.
Stage 1 starting tendering, and they're already planning stage 2.
Okay, great. So, and that will ultimately be linked up with the other network?
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellent. All right, so let's move on a little bit. Why light rail? So, one of the typical questions is a railway, isn't it? In a way, it is a railway because it goes in Wales. But in another way, and that's what we have learned a bit the hard way in stage 1, it's not. Light rail, and the light is the particular thing here, doesn't really follow the rules of a railway as such, as a heavy railway, like a freight carrier or a mining railway or other systems. The particularity about having a track, a steel track, and steel wheels going on that track is the use of energy, the efficiency of using energy for traction. So that means light rail is particularly energy efficient by means of running on steel rails. And of course it has the second side of the medal, some disadvantages as well. You can imagine if you have very low friction on the rail, you also have very low friction if you need to brake. So that means for braking, we have some additional features on the train. I can come to that a little bit later if it's of interest to you. But light rail has a lot of advantages over, let's say, a heavy rail, in particular in urban environment. It suits very well into urban planning environment. And I have to say, in this instance, Canberra is actually a blessed city because we have all the land already available. So we have corridors just in the middle of big avenues where someone has thought of it about 100 years ago. There might potentially be a light rail or a railway going down to the city center, serving all the other villages and connecting those with the city center.
Because we tend to say trams.
Feel free to say trams. I don't mind. There is a distinction though. So historically grown systems like, for example, Melbourne, they have a great deal of road shared space. So they share this road space with cars. You interact with cars. Sometimes have an accident with cars.
Yeah, tends to make them a lot slower.
Right.
So we're always and they stop during time, and they do the closer stop.
Correct. Our system, light rail, is a typical light rail in Canberra, goes, let's say, 90% on its own right of way, separated from the street, except the intersections. Right? And of course, in average, and that's what we can claim in Canberra, we have the fastest light rail in Australia. We're going 70
because we're so segregated.
Yeah.
Stage 1 is so much more free.
Right. Okay. Major elements are standardized. So that means a good thing of having a light rail is there are certain standards existing in the world, not in Australia.
No?
So we're working on that
Yeah.
with certain entities to introduce standards in Australia for light rail as well, which makes it easier for territory, for the operator, for maintainers next time to run the system and to operate and maintain the system. And it makes it very cost efficient. So coming back to the term light refers in particular to an axle load. So that means we have way lower axle load, which requires a way, say, more efficiently and not just use the word cheap, but lower costs track infrastructure. So compared to a heavy railway with freight transport, etc., you have less of significantly fewer infrastructure costs to build such a system. So that's actually a great advantage of that railway system. Of course, cost efficient, environmentally friendly. We'll talk about it a little bit later. And I was in a conference last year in Adelaide, Smart City Conference, and I told the auditorium, are you aware, and I hope you are, we're actually introducing electric mobility in Canberra. So light rail trams were the first form of electric mobility. So apart from all the Teslas and whoever is making a big noise now, electric mobility, but light rail is the first form of electric mobility in urban centers, in urban environment. Okay.
So I think there's also kind of, in terms of the important thing to the light rail is it's there, it's on the ground, it's in front of you, it's easy to access. So a lot of it is, heavy rail systems tend to be split away from or underground. So this is really all about people being able to see it, easily what's on and off. Anybody's used stage 1 on the north, lives on the northern side. I think you know, the feedback we can get when we're traveling ourselves is just like it's easy to see, you just turn up. Because you don't need a timetable, it's all turn up and go, and that's the whole point. You don't have to kind of think about your trip. You just turn up, try and be there within 10 minutes into peak, every 6 minutes in the peak, so you don't even have to think about the journey. It's all about that level of reliability that you know if you go out, it's going to be there.
Yeah, I'm sure we both can
talk forever.
Another beauty, and that should be another. A light rail system can grow with demand. So you can even expand the system. You can make the trains longer. You can extend the platforms easily because they're great. So you don't have an underground infrastructure, etc., etc. So if a city grows and you start to introduce a light rail system, you can even grow the light rail system with the growth of the city over the generations. All right. Moving on a little bit, I think probably that's one of yours.
Yeah, this is just really to show what the plans for the network are. So this is obviously stage 1, and then stage 2 going down to Woden, and then the rest of the network as it will be planned to be rolled out. So this is, when we're talking about light rail in Canberra, we're always talking about the next stage of the network. We don't kind of talk about it in sections, but they're not standalone sections. You know, they're part of the whole network for the city, which will just be rolled out over time.
And as you know, running from Gungahlin to Civic or Alinga station, Canberra city centre, is going all along the corridor, the Flemington Road, and then Northbourne Avenue, where we have actually plenty of space for our own corridor, segregated from the road traffic, and changing the mobility pattern, in particular in the north, and then looking forward to expand into the south.
Yeah.
Whatever will be decided.
Yeah, in fact, this route coming this way is now basically obviously around London Circuit West, so we're more on road for stage 2 than we are for stage 1, across Commonwealth Avenue Bridge, most probably around Parliament House and State Circle, on the inside of State Circle, and then down Adelaide Avenue and into Woking.
Okay. So on, a few facts about stage 1. 12 kilometers of track length in total, so from Gungahlin to Alinga, we typically serve in a peak service in 6 minutes, which is pretty good standard for a light rail system. In the off-peak, during weekdays, we have 10 minutes headway. Over the weekends, we have 15 minutes headway. There are some considerations whether we might potentially go away from the 15 to 10 minutes over the day, because you might have heard in the news, and you probably experienced yourself, the trains are pretty packed and pretty full, so we have a very, very good response from the public.
Yeah.
Trains are pretty well used, and we are actually in the area of numbers like 2025.
Yeah,
something
pretty
like
much
that
our
already.
forecasts are already well above what we originally.
I was just wondering whether they might introduce a rapid service, because I noticed when I was on it that a lot of people, particularly at peak hours, don't want to go in between, say, the city and Gungahlin.
Yep.
Why stop at every stop?
Yeah, so there is a pro and con for it, as is in always. The difficulty will be if you don't serve every stop, you certainly end up in a 6 minute headway very soon at the train in front of yourself. So you will actually mess up the operations concept a little bit. There are systems, by the way, who are doing something like that. But in a 6 minutes headway, actually you wouldn't really save a lot of time. So it's probably in the area of potentially 1.5 minutes you could save with a, say, run through service from one end to the other, considering you have other trains in the circle as well. You're not just having one train in the circle. So for a 6 minutes headway, we're moving 10 trains up and down the tracks simultaneously at one time. So actually the separation of the trains, 5.5, 6 minutes, you wouldn't save much time if you have an express service from, let's say, Gungahlin to Alinga.
We do also have concerns about the legibility of service and making sure that people know exactly at the moment everybody can get on a tram or a light rail vehicle every 6 minutes. You don't then have to worry that yours might be every other one, so it's actually 12 minutes or, so it's that ability to turn up and go and just know that you're going to be able to, for the time saving that you might get from a rapid service.
What's the frequency of, is 10 to 15 minute off peak? Is that weekends as well? Or?
Yes, so weekends we have 15 minutes headway at the moment, which is of course to be reconsidered according to the demand.
We can basically adjust it as the demand requires. So it really depends how many users we get, and especially for events and things.
Yes,
we have
there's additional services planned, and Territory always in a position to ask the operator to put more services. So we're currently serving a little bit more than we're actually supposed to according to the concept, just to comply with the demand and not to leave passengers behind on the platform.
So we're also in a bit of a let them down period because we've only been operating for
1 month.
1 month.
1 month paid
1
period.
month paid.
Yes.
So we let it settle down a little bit, but we have been talking about running more services for the school peak as the schools come out and things like that, to try and just make sure that everybody has a comfortable ride.
Yeah. All right. So the next stage, and that's probably
Yeah. So City Croydon is another 12 stops. I'll begin. It's pretty much the same length. I went to a light rail conference I think a few months ago where everybody kind of came up and said, oh yes, my new one is 10 to 12 kilometres long. It seems to be a fairly standard length for everybody. So probably another 16 vehicles. The 39,000 people a day, this basically links into the existing city to Gungahlin, so that 39,000 forecast is for the whole way to Gungahlin.
complete length.
And then really, we're very keen, obviously, to make the link across the lake, and really to ensure that the link between the city and the parliamentary zone is in place, and then also to provide the city change. So that's the kind of drive.
Right, a few sustainability initiatives. So when talking about introduction of a light rail in a city environment, it's not just about transportation. It is you invest in huge infrastructure, and of course you want to make best use of this infrastructure as you invest into it. So that means you typically want to use the latest status of design, you typically want to use the latest status of technology to make resources recycled and available for the system. So we have a number of innovations in our system established. Of course, the overall view on it is the reduction of the carbon dioxide footprint, as we introduced, as I said earlier, electric mobility into a city environment. Biodiversity considerations play a big role, batteries, power generations in the LRVs. So our LRVs have the latest generation of batteries installed into them, which will enable them also for the option in future for stage 2 to have an overhead continuous operation for a short section of the track.
We haven't even.
That's just
No
one
signal
town.
that is-
But it's still, I was going to ask, with the light rail, is there any kind of planning in place for, say, parking facilities for some of these areas?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you've got the bus depot in Dixon, but there's no parking, there's not a lot of parking available there for people.
Not in Dixon, there is elsewhere on the route. I think there's parking, there's going to be parking at the end.
I think, yes,
So they're creating more
So
there.
as we go through and we see what people's journey patterns are with the light rail in place, we continue to look at the opportunities for park and ride, bike and ride as well. And certainly on stage 2, we're looking at a park and ride sign at near the Oval as a potential for a park and ride there. As you get closer to the city, we don't really want to encourage park and ride too much because it basically means people drive further into the city than they maybe normally would, and that just adds to our congestion problem. So
Yeah, and so with some of the stops too, they sort of seem to be in slightly odd places, like the stop at Epic is up the road rather than near the ticket box. So which seems a little bit strange and the parking. So it just sort of, and then there wasn't one in Mitchell until there was a lot of complaint about
yeah, and
totally
But there was-
And there was a lot of discussion with the Mitchell traders when we were in planning, and at the time, I'm not sure whether it was we only thought we were going to build it, so a bit of a lack of interest, but we really didn't get very much back from the Mitchell traders then. We always future-proofed for it, so we've got the space to put a stop in because we had a feeling that it might come up in the future, and it's probably come up just slightly earlier than we thought it might. So, yeah.
Are there plans for multi-storey car parking or something in Canberra? Because even now, it's very difficult to find unpaid parking at the.
There is some more review going on around Kingallen and the parking in Kingallen for light rail. So yes, there will be. I'm not sure it'll be a multi-story, but there is a review going on about the market stuff.
All right, I think we just move on.
Yeah.
Project. So considering about, say, environmental friendly technology use of for light rail, talking about recycling of materials, talking about recycling of water. So for example, in the depot in Mitchell, we are currently using rainwater for all grey water use for toilet flush, but also for the wash plant, which is the biggest consumer for water in the area to wash the exterior of the trains. We are looking into use of solar cells, which we have already installed on the roof of the administration building, and for stage 2 potentially looking into extension of those for the production of our own auxiliary energy to use in the depot. There are other opportunities which we will certainly discuss with Territory in the future about the introduction of secondary use and recycling of the infrastructure as such. So traction power substations could be used as a charging base for buses, for public electric vehicles whatsoever. So that's something which has to be worked out, and that's probably interesting for career seekers to develop this kind of integration of the system into a city environment. And we're not necessarily talking about new technology as such. The technology exists, but the key word for a light rail system in particular is integration into a city environment. So, of course, having a big investment in mind, like for example, stage one, the investment was close to 700 million Aussie dollars. You don't want to have this infrastructure used only during the daytime when the trains are running up and down. This infrastructure sitting there and can be used, of course, for other purposes as well. And that's a matter of how to think out of the box and to integrate this infrastructure in the city environment and to make best use of it in terms of efficiency. There are other ways of using energy. For example, the trains are able to recuperate braking energy. So to store this energy, technology is available in different ways, capacitors, flying wheels, etc., where you can temporarily store this energy when the train will brake. You can use this energy for acceleration of another train or for any other purposes when you have to have energy involved in that. Okay. Any other questions about career perspectives in this? I mean, energy usage, recycling, etc., which is certainly
Does it
interesting.
mean that you would be employing more environmental engineers or specialists?
Certainly, yes.
I think in the future that's almost a given.
Yes.
I think we do an awful lot now about how we can use, if we make this investment, how can we make the very best use of it in all areas, and particularly in terms of the green energy
Correct.
component of
Correct.
it.
So as you're aware, the ACT government has outlined a plan for the carbon dioxide reduction in the ACT with quite ambitious targets to become carbon dioxide neutral capital in Australia. And to use the biggest infrastructure in town, of course, is an element of this. So we see ourselves and present ourselves to the territory as well as an enabler for this stage, and we would certainly need a lot of know-how, a lot of people who come from various different engineering disciplines, environmental protection areas, to help us getting that in place and make that work.
So I think light rail has kind of, in our view, from the government's perspective, has a double benefit.
Yeah.
It by itself is taking people off the road and out of their emission cars, which will soon be the biggest emitter of pollutants in the territory, onto a clean form of transport. But then there's the opportunity then to use that clean form to do other things with them. Yeah,
Right.
so definitely as a future trend.
Oh, it works in the screen.
Put it on the screen.
Just probably move over this.
Sorry.
How many jobs are we actually talking about?
Do you have
Have you done
numbers
that
that
for
are
yourself?
so
To work out how many people you would need to employ, because in theory, you don't know how many young people there might
I don't remember the.
I don't have the actual figure.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
But it's interesting because actually there's a lot of work goes into the planning.
Yeah.
Kind of which is within the kind of government sphere. So we've probably got a team of 70 odd people, I suppose, on light rail overall. And those people are in operations, delivery, planning, but the skill sets they've got are very varied. You know, we don't actually have that many engineers within government. A lot of them are environmental scientists, urban realm people, landscape architects, environmental planners, economists, lawyers. You know, there's a whole gamut of people who you might not necessarily kind of go, oh yes, they'd be working on a light rail project. So,
And how do you know about how many people are actually involved in construction? How many people employed in that area?
Yeah, so the project delivery report was just issued a couple of days
yes,
ago.
it was.
So it's online available. If I remember correctly, there was a number around 5,000
Yeah.
mentioned in the report. Of course, not 5,000 at the same time. So,
Yeah.
But I remember from certain project meetings, there were numbers around close to 1,000 permanent people working on the job during construction. So that was, of course, focused to construction, civil works in particular. But you must also consider a lot of work. A lot of work being done in, let's say, secondary areas, not necessarily in Canberra, but all around the place. So lots of people actually came from other places to Canberra because simply the sheer amount of workforce wasn't available and qualification wasn't available in Canberra. And this is of course one of the targets also for rolling out the whole project into the other parts of the city to create know-how in Canberra and to make this technology and know-how available in Canberra.
And have that consistency of flow of work. I think that those things will just keep going. So it's not like you're going to train yourself up in a particular area and then not have a job to go to. I think probably what we should also say is that certainly in Victoria and New South Wales, there is a huge demand currently for these types of skills. So we are foreseeing a resource shortage, particularly in Canberra because I suppose our technical expertise tends to come in from outside because there's never been a lot of rail work in the territory. So it's really important to build that up locally because there will be a shortage anyway. So there's so much work in the rail industry going on.
So the call is don't go waste in Canberra. That was bringing up stage 2 and other stages.
Absolutely, and your skills, should you wish to travel, will certainly not be, will be easy.
Yeah. So
sorry.
So I was just going to say one thing. I don't know, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, the Capital Metro ran that competition for stage 1.
Yeah.
Are you guys is that going to happen again? Because that was fantastic. Because a lot of us come from that area where kids want to get involved. Are they going to do that again?
We haven't talked about it, but I'll take it back.
Can you
I will.
That was brilliant, and they presented in front
Yes,
of
they
project management.
Yes. I think our Director General was there, I can still remember.
So if that can happen again, that's
I'll
on
take that
behalf
back.
of the students that would like,
So what we are definitely seeking is a close relationship with the community. So we are frequently going out, Sally is doing it in particular to schools and present the system to students as we do for universities and et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to engage.
We're only too happy to get out really and talk to everybody. So.
And we're also planning kind of a day of an open door sometime for the Mitchell Depot, so for you guys to have a look behind the scenes. So where the trains are maintained and how we are setting them up for the day-to-day operation. Right? So this is just an example for technology being used during construction. We call it a slab track design, so that means the tracks are actually embedded in a concrete slab track, which is a proven and very sophisticated way of laying tracks for light rail, in particular for low noise, low vibration, and very efficient, very effective being introduced in the project.
We've only got 3 minutes.
Okay, then we've been quickly talking about overhead continuity-free operations. There is a requirement by the NCA.
Yes, so the Commonwealth, basically, as soon as we get onto Commonwealth Avenue and all the way around Parliament House, to be wire-free, so have no poles and wires. So the energy storage is actually on the track itself. We will extend that, I think, where we can, so possibly actually from the current Allinga Street stop and around, just to avoid having to link into the existing system. And some of the wiring around those complicated intersections gets a bit heavy.
So we have a bit of a.
So you
actually,
that should that run?
If you get it, hopefully play.
From here or?
So hopefully we'll have a chance to put the virtual reality goggles on. What we're kind of really seeing is we do now a lot of this kind of high-tech VR, we're moving into augmented reality, we do a lot of 3D simulations and things. This is probably another, I suppose, a career prospect in terms of the work that we do. Okay. So these are, I suppose, again, things you wouldn't necessarily think relate to the project, but actually are an integral part now of what we do to connect with the community and explain to people what we're doing. We're running through things now that we're being offered where you can get a piece of paper and your smartphone and you put the phone over the top of the paper and some 3D thing appears in front of you. It's amazingly clever technology to try and explain to people how things work. So we're also, I think, we've used drones. Construction surveillance used to be done by flyovers of aeroplanes. We didn't see them very often, they were incredibly expensive. So now we're kind of, I suppose, trying to get the benefit of that drone technology. And I know certainly on other heavy rail projects that I've heard about, they're even using it to do like track inspections especially out in difficult to get to areas, they can fly these drones through. And so everything to do with, I suppose, gaming, all of that technology is kind of coming into the workplace. So it's very, very different to certainly when I started, where, as I say, we used to have to kind of go, oh my god, I have to sit away, we've got things to play. So.
But then comes down to the question raised from this side. It's all about visualization and communication. First of all, for decision makers, how you can visualize a project, how you can present a project the best way, but also for the community to get an idea of what we're up to, what we're doing, and how it will affect your day-to-day life and how you want to use the system, etc., etc. So visualization is key, and communication about what the project is all about helps to get an understanding and acceptance in the community.
This is the final one, isn't it?
The one about ticketing.
So the other thing that we're now having a look at is going to account-based ticketing. So no longer will you need your little MyWay card, but in fact every transport system everywhere is going to be account-based. So you can use your phone, your credit card. It's not ticket-based any longer. The ACT is going along the same route. So this is just another one. It's integrating your travel into your daily life, so you just don't have to think about it. You don't have to buy a ticket. You don't have to plan your journey. It's all just about turn up and go. And I suppose the new buzzwords in the industry are all about mobility as a service. So it's kind of connecting your Uber to your light rail, to your bus, to your bike, to your walk, and doing it as seamlessly as possible.
So what does a tourist do?
Well, with this, a tourist would come in with their phone and just go, or their credit card, doesn't matter. You could go to Sydney with the same thing and use your credit card on the Sydney system or Queensland system. There will be no tickets, basically.
You don't have to upload their app or whatever.
No, shouldn't have to, it should just go to Sydney. Just be like, if anybody's got Apple Pay, you just like that.
And you pay as you go, so you will not be charged for something you don't need or you don't want.
And it's clever enough that if you do your multiple trips per week, it'll only charge you for the capped amount. It won't charge you.
How does that work for concession card holders, students who don't necessarily have credit cards and Apple Pay?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it works for students. I think there is a methodology to it, but I think you might have to register in that case.
Yes.
Yeah, and they'll still use their cards.
Yeah.
It's a bit like you do now, I think, for your MyWay card. I think you've probably got to register, and then that registration will come through as part of the data that's on your payment method. Yeah. So it's kind of keeping this data out of the transport system and just, almost like a banking system.
I was just about to say, it's actually a retail banking system where you actually sign on once and then you're in the system and you can just.
So you buy your coffee the same way as you go on there.
So if you guys, for example, if you go to Singapore, if you go to elsewhere in Asia, it's quite common cashless payment everywhere, including transportation system.
Where is it starting?
Oh, this won't be for a few years yet. Yeah.
It's like that sci-fi thing where everyone had a bracelet.
Yeah,
just
yeah, pretty much. And there are some ideas, particularly to school children, to give them like a band so that they don't have to carry a card and things like that. So, but that's where we're heading, and we're heading there pretty quickly. Yeah.
But you can
the
see,
chicken yard,
the different career perspectives in that. So lots of IT involved, lots of simulation, lots of anticipation, planning, etc., etc. And again, integration is key.
A lot more cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of imagination, really, as I'm about what we do.
Oh, nice. So we just have finished the presentation, I guess.
Yeah. No, thank you.
For further information, of course, Transport ACT and CMS websites, and feel free to come back to us and ask questions.